So, my dear Tally, what lessons would you say I taught you, intentionally or not, that completely changed the way you see the world?
Mm, there's two that made me stick out to me. Um, the first one is change the way you look at things, and the things you look at will change. And the second one is jump out of judgment and hop into curiosity. I think those two have become very monumental in my life because, when you're young and you think you know everything and you think you just completely understand what life is trying to give you, you can lean to some quite negative stances and takes, or at least that was my experience. So I really struggled with implementing those theories into my life at a young age. But as I've gotten older, those have kind of become the ethos for just how I'm choosing to live my life.
Right.
And it helps a lot. It helps me change the context in which I process my experiences.
Right.
It's less of what's happening to me, more of what's like happening for me. Less of, you know, oh, why me, or more of, taking in things from an angle of there's a lesson in it somewhere. There's really something for me to gain at every point that I'm enduring something or, experiencing something. So, yeah, I think that.
Is there a moment from your childhood where you saw me differently, not just as a parent, but as a person? Mm. I'm a person. Yes, I'm mama, but yeah, I mean, has there been anything that has made you look, wow, I mean, you're my mom, but you're a person.
Um, Sorry.
That's okay. That's okay. So it sounds like it's something really deep,
hmm
and that's okay. I want you to share. I want you to share.
When we've been through a lot of things, and when we experienced being homeless and, what that even felt like, because it's like essentially we were never without a home,
Mm-hmm.
but we was experiencing a time in which we didn't know where our next home was going to be. And, I've watched you work, in co-production with God and make some crazy miracles happen. And I think I think seeing you always persevering when,
Came.
yeah, and it was really, the jobs that you did.
It was a tough time for all of us. Yeah. And I never really thought about, well, I was in fight or flight mode. So, hmm. So if you had to raise yourself, knowing what you know now, what would you do differently?
I would lean into balanced transparency a little bit more. I think, you allowed me to be independent quite quickly in all the right ways, allowed me to go off to college early, allowed me to work, you know.
Wasn't easy.
I think those sorts of principles that you instilled in me were always exactly what I needed to be able to survive in the world today. So I think leaning more into the transparency of just how you even came to know why we should be doing this or why it's important to have that level of integrity, touching on, because I know that it's a bit taboo for parents to be forthcoming with children in a certain way, their kids in a certain way. You kept it together, but I think it would have been important to know and see and just hear maybe some of the ways that you weren't keeping it together. I think not to like desensitize your children to traumatic things, but in a sense, give them the language to be able to explain what they're gonna maybe encounter. Because you want to be careful the words that you prophesied of your children. So I know you speaking life into us was always for the benefit of our future. Do you get what I mean? But I also think it would have been beneficial to know what types of struggles you were tackling.
Right.
A little bit more in depth, a little bit more transparent. You didn't always have to keep it together for us. And that would be the message that I think I would, if I was raising myself, I would have moments with myself where I'd say, hey, like, I'm not okay right now. And I know you're probably feeling that I'm not okay right now, but we're going to be okay. And I'm not just blindly telling you that I feel what you feel.
Yeah.
I know that you're feeling the energy, but it's,
that's a very valid. I'm really grateful for you sharing that because I think as parents we go into a protective mode, so we're
exactly you're
trying to
shielding
and not wanting you to absorb without recognizing, wow, you're actually going through what I'm going through, and you must be feeling. I mean, you don't know about it in the moment because in the moment it's fight or flight. So it's I've got to feed my kids. I've got to put a roof over our head. I've got to figure it out. And I guess an element of pride that comes in because I'm not asking for help in other places. I wasn't reaching out to friends and family. It's like, how did I get here? And if it was just me, but my children, oh God, yeah, that was that. I'm sorry.
oh, why is it don't say
No, I'm not sorry.
do not say sorry. Okay, so what was a parenting moment that tested you the most but shaped you the most?
A parenting moment that tested me and shaped me. Two from two different angles. One was adopting parenting. I say skills because there wasn't a manual for this, but allowing you to be free, to be. I'll give you a classic example. At the age of 3, you want to be in the kitchen. You want to be in everything. You want to use the knife. You want to use the drill. You want to use the blender. The drill. You want to kill. Yeah, anything. You want to cook. You want to. So allowing you the freedom to just be and do against the opinions of others, of other elders as well, family members, close proximity. Your dad was very protective. So for him coming in and seeing the kitchen just trash, eggs, flour, whatever, all over the place, and you just standing on a box, just having your merry way, and me just letting you. So what if you've wasted a box of eggs and a hot bag of flour wanting to make me? So it's
eggs must have been cheap back then, because
yeah, they ain't cheap no more. No, they ain't cheap no more. But it was challenging because I didn't want to put any restraints on you to express yourself, however, whether it's through cooking, whether it's through dancing, and it was against the norm for some of my generation. You could give her too much freedom. I think the other thing that was challenging for me is when your brother came, is raising a boy to be a man. Your brother was different. He's a male, and not recognizing that unintentionally, without even realizing that maybe there were expectations of him as a young boy, as a young black male, as an African male, that it's an unspoken expectation of him being all that he should have been, other than a child. And I really wasn't aware of the expectations of him. Your brother, very young, it's just the three of us. So for him, he is the protector, younger than, the youngest that he was. And he wanted to be a provider as well. But I didn't acknowledge that there were probably things that he needed tenderness, he needed a different direction to you. He didn't have to be the man he was trying to be. And I didn't recognize that as a mother. Um, and was it a sacrifice? Yeah, I was compromising. I was trying to protect him, but not really nurturing him in the way that maybe I should. I was overcompensating for the absence of, strong male role models for him. So that was challenging. Um, yeah, it was challenging. I thought I was doing okay because, you just assume in this role that no one's told you how the difference between boys and girls and our expectations of them. So I didn't know about the deeper things that were going on with him because I think there was an unspoken expectation of him to just be strong and man up. And I wish I'd allowed, engaged in him being more sensitive, more delicate, and allowing him to just be the child. It's okay. You are not our protector. You are not the man of the house. But in as much as he said it, we enabled that, without realizing that it became, maybe it was even a burden to him. Not a burden in that it was bothersome to him, but he took that position very, very seriously. I have to protect my mom and my sister. I'm the man of the house now. Yeah, if I could have done it all again.
I mean, you did an amazing, you do an amazing job. So let's start there.
Thank you.
Let's start there. I think that is a very layered angle and perspective because though there's so much validity to everything that you've just said, there's also something to be said about the fact that he wanted to be that man. With or without influence, he said, I'm going to protect the two women that protect me and take care of me.
True.
And I truly believe that that comes from a lot of the strength that he got to see you display. So it's like a blessing and a curse in the same effect. And that's why I said I think it's layered, you know what I mean?
But it kind of brings me back to what you said earlier about, when I asked you about what you would do differently as a parent. I think had we had some of those conversations, then it wouldn't have to have been as much of a responsibility for him, and that I could have engaged in conversations that reflected that you don't have to be this and mom is going through, because I guess both of you had to figure out what mum was dealing with, how's she going to cope without mum telling you, and trying to figure out solutions to problems that weren't discussed. But it wasn't a manual for this, I can tell you.
Honestly. What was the hardest sacrifice that you had to make as a mother that I may not have fully understood when I was young?
Mm, that you may not have understood. I think as self-sufficient as we were when things were really good is not giving you everything that you wanted when I could. I think that was sometimes challenging because saying no to your children for something, I mean, even in terms of your career, at a very early age, you knew what you wanted to do from the age of 11, even younger than that, but not putting you in all the positions that I could have done because of my position. Um, I don't know if you realize today that I had to let you pursue your path with the determination and drive that you say you have, rather than me giving you a helping hand. Because everything that you've done today, you've done it seeking for yourself, um, sourcing for yourself. And could I have made things a bit easier for you? Yes, I could have.
Oh, dang, shawty.
No, no, but seriously. But you take so much pride in what you've done today because you know the sacrifice. It wasn't your success isn't built off of my success. It might be in your DNA, but I've had to stand by with difficulty sometimes, watch you climb and form in your career, watch you deal with situations that I want to say to you, I don't think, but you have to take that route so that you know where not to go. And it's not because mama said, it's because you now have the experience that you can speak with conviction, to other people about the pitfalls of the business. So that's been a hard thing in parenting. There's so much that I could give and do. And even now that, and when I watch you take that extra step, it's like, you know what, you've put in 100%, so I'm going to back you up with 100%. But I've got to see you putting that 100% first. And it's difficult watching you trying to make it happen. That's a sacrifice because I'm so tempted to fix every problem you have and open every door that you're knocking on. But you've done it yourself and it has more value.
Interesting. Yeah. Okay.
Do you understand that now?
I do. I don't think I've ever. So
It's okay.
it's funny because it definitely reads as that. But I find myself having conversations with like some of my chosen family and friends where we talk about the cultural and generational divide between like my generation and your generation, where we're all like, oh no, nepotism is for our kids. Like, we don't want our kids to know the struggle. We're just gonna, and that's obviously coming from some type of like traumatic response to just, things that have happened in life that we feel like we could have done without, and so on and so forth. Like everyone's got their own like reasons for feeling like how they feel. But what I think is interesting is that there's certain things that you encounter where you're like, okay, I thought that before, but not so much now.
Mm.
And I could see that being an ideal of mine that changes, like the idea that I'm going to just give my kids everything. Well, not necessarily everything, obviously, that's an exaggeration, but, going to kind of do it all, push them, even if they don't want to go, they go into practice type of energy.
Mm.
But I could see that, after hearing just the way you articulated that, I could see that being a perspective that changes over time, just thinking about it, especially with the world that we live in today.
Because there was a time that you guys were entitled. You didn't behave entitled, but to all and sundry, anything you wanted, you had a privileged life that wasn't considered a privilege. It's like now that some of those privileges, it's like, okay, I've got to climb back up this ladder. Um, it's meant a lot to me, you guys recognizing, you know what, we actually did have a privilege life, but now you fight for that privilege. No one can ever say, oh, you've got this because,
No, it's your own fault because why would you even make me do bougie bougette for this world to just be so ghetto? I don't even want to be here. Put me back in the womb.
Well, you've had some good examples.
It's not entitled. You got me acclimated. How dare you?
Well, there is that because your love of fine cuisine, girl.
You're taking me to where? At what age?
Yeah, that's very true. You started a travel. Actually, you started your travels from inside the womb.
You love to say that, but no, I definitely, I agree with I never shy away from speaking on just the way that I recognize how much of a privilege it was to grow up the way that I grew up. I truly, truly believe that it is the reasons why I was able to deal with tough situations in my life with a certain level of ease and grace, even though some of the things that we've dealt with are like
traumatic.
You know what I'm saying?
Let's just say, call it what it was.
Right. And so obviously that kind of like initially shapes why you feel like, oh, nepotism, gonna be rich, gonna give my kids everything, give them a fighting chance, like make sure I can do what my mom did above and beyond times 10. Like it definitely sets that bar high. However, I'm not saying that I'm not gonna have that type of environment when I do have the blessing of having children. But I think I could adopt some of what you're saying. Like, yeah, you obviously got to work for it. But I guess it's more about letting them choose their path.
Exactly.
And letting them decide and really commit and not, necessarily encroaching. I think there's a thin line between order and control.
Wow.
I always want to keep order in my home, but I don't want to control my children. You know what I mean? So,
because it's funny. There was a time people thought I was pushing you to. They don't
even you wasn't pushing me enough, mate.
She got her TV debut at the age of 11. I was on tour and I got a call saying, Mummy, guess what? I'm going to be on the Disney Channel. What do you mean you're going to be on the Disney Channel? How did this 11-year-old orchestrate that in my absence? By herself.
Because the internet happened. I'm telling you, I love the internet. And I have a love-hate relationship with the internet, but the internet was a really great thing when we had dial-up and all that stuff. Don't let me age myself. Dial-up and all of that.
Yeah.
But yeah. So if you could sit down with your younger self back when you were raising me, what would you tell her?
Be a bit more transparent, because that's what I'm learning actually in this conversation now. Be transparent about when you're not okay. I think I've always acted like Superwoman, and yet you guys saw me when I was vulnerable, when I was broken, and it was okay. We can't say anything right now because Mum's not good, even though Mum's not saying she's not good. Okay, kids, we're going to get ready. We're going to go and do this, and you're both looking at me and realizing Mum's hurting, something's up, but she's still going to make the best of it. So, yeah, to my younger self, be transparent, be vulnerable. It's okay to share without projecting pain, because it's about how you package your communication. So I could let you guys know that I was okay without bias, or that I wasn't okay, rather, without bias, without influencing your opinions. Because if I'm going through something, I don't want you guys to hurt. But I realize now, in hindsight, you hurt if I hurt, just like I hurt when you guys hurt. So truly, I wish someone could have said to me, just talk to your kids, be transparent about what you're feeling to a degree, because, can't tell our kids everything. Right. That could maybe influence the way they think or feel. But they were feeling anyway, so you might as well have some input into navigating those feelings. So, Tell me about a family tradition or a moment that meant more than we realized at the time.
I would have to say it was the time that, it was a bit sweet because you wasn't there, but it was the time that me, Bakari, grandma, the cousins, everyone was back in London for like the first time. And he was like grown up. We were all grown up. Like there was new babies and, like we were like the older ones now. Like, and there was like the younger versions of us. It was just a moment in time where we got to physically see, just grandmom's legacy and lineage like transcend in such a different way. And we were all there together. So that would probably be my first. And then my second moment would be when grandmom got to see Bakari with his daughter, when Kalei was born. Grandma came with Tyrese to visit. Right. And came with our little cousin. And yeah, it was a moment to see with his daughter, and it was just, it was just don't
Forward generation.
Exactly.
Wow.
You don't really think like in that moment, like, oh, this isn't a moment I'll be able to get back, until it's no more in such a deep way, they're both no longer with us.
So true.
Yeah.
Special moment.
What about you?
Oh, I mean, that was definitely one of them. When you think of family, what I really loved is having you, your cousins, as well in different corners of the room. Just find a space, grab a blanket and a pillow, and crash.
Yeah.
Never a dull moment. Always a full house. I think it was funny to me that you kids, when you became older, you say, "How comes we used to have parties every week?" And I'd explain to you, actually, that wasn't parties. That was all your family.
It felt like parties.
It felt like parties, yeah, because it's always a full house, always a full pot, and music. Yeah, those were special moments. As for family traditions, I mean, we just got together all the time. I think eating is is our tradition for sure. And I think another moment though was my brother's wedding. I ain't gonna lie, we're in the Ashobi, our tradition when someone gets married, we pick uniforms material, and the bride's family would wear one color, and the groom's family, you could identify friends and family of either the bride or groom. And that was a special moment for me and my brother's wedding because I was a bridesmaid. Oh. Yeah. Oh. Great memories.
Funny question.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Describe the time we clashed. What did that moment teach you about us? Or what did it teach us about love, boundaries, and understanding?
Can I be cheeky?
Oh,
can I flip the script, and can I ask you that question first?
Why?
Because I want to see if we land on the same page. Because I know one, and it's like, do I have permission to talk about this?
Oh my god.
Maybe you will. So tell me a time that we clashed. What did that moment teach us about boundaries and love and understanding? Don't go silent on me. We said, okay, listen, this podcast was your idea. Speak your speak.
I'm going to talk about one particular moment. Where I recently asked you to block somebody. And you said no. And this person is causing quite the stir in some personal spaces. Mm-hmm. And, I just kind of wanted to cut all ties and make sure that this person wasn't able to have access to anything to do with you or anybody that I love. And you're just not budging on it. You are not going to block this person. This isn't even somebody you are friends with online.
Thank you.
It's not even somebody that you engage with, but just your sheer defiance to stand in unison with your child is quite diabolical. However, what it teaches me about love and understanding is that I think that I'm quite tolerable of you and I accept you for how you actually are.
So you tolerate me?
No, I'm tolerable of you and
tolerate of me.
Okay.
I don't know.
Yes, whatever word makes you feel best. Tolerant, tolerable. I feel like I'm able to give you a lot of grace and I accept you for who you are. So in that moment, I just remove any personal triggers that might come up with it because I think there is some things that you're just like a hard no on that have caused a bit of like discomfort for me in the past. And instead of associating that with now, I'm just like, all right, you're going to just.
And did you understand that was not about not being in partnership with you? So can I explain my take on that situation? May I? Sure. Permission to speak. So, yes, you asked me to block somebody that I do not follow, I do not engage with. We have no association, no connection whatsoever. Clearly, there's something going on that I'm not aware of, so they're probably accessing, they have access to see me and my life, right? And for me, it's like, for me to make the effort to now search for this person that I'm not associated with, to go through the process of eliminating somebody that I'm not even connected with, that was taken out of my time, that I just didn't feel. Because to be honest, if anybody wants to look at me, I can block them till thy kingdom come. We all know how to look at other people's profiles if we get blocked. So if somebody is really monitoring me, they're going to do so anyway. So for me, it's like, I don't need to make, if they want to hurt themselves looking at my life, then so be it. It's energy that I don't even need to engage with. And me having to go and look for them and go through these, check, 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 whatever it is. I've never really blocked anybody like that. It wasn't against you. It's just my principle of, I don't even have to acknowledge. If I start looking for you to block you, now I'm acknowledging you. And now I brought you into my space. And if you want to see what I'm doing, you're going to see what I'm doing anyway.
I just think that the part that you're maybe not getting is that it wasn't necessarily about the energy that you had to put into something, more so just kind of like being in unison with or being on the same team as me so that I could have established some type of red flag that would have helped a situation that I was mediating. If you were completely removed from the situation, it would have created a narrative that would support some of the points that I was trying to make. And I also feel like as your daughter, there's still a level of discernment that I have with certain situations in certain forums where it's like, not that I'm saying I know more than you, but I know that there's only so much somebody can do to go and view you. And there's only so much that if they were to take that step, again, it would lead back to the point that I was trying to hone in on. And I kind of just needed your help with that. And you just have a difference of opinion. So, I get that you have your non-negotiables about what you're going to engage with, but I was actually asking you to completely disengage.
But one is disengage with something you're engaged with. So
again, I feel like that's subjective because at the end of the day, if your name is being mentioned in a certain way and I'm aware of it and I'm trying to mediate a situation where I am actually connected to it and involved in it, what I would do is what I did, which is request that you work with me on something while I am dismantling something. But though your defiance is your right, it does still leave me in a certain position. And do you taking the responsibility and accountability for my involvement in this situation? If you don't want to do something that would help me in that is fine. However, it does say to me that your non-negotiables are just not your non-negotiables, and you're not going to do that for anybody, not even your daughter.
Did you feel like you were protecting me while you wanted me to do?
No, I was trying to make a point,
right,
and a point that was going to.
Because if someone's calling my name, it's not what they call me, it's what I answer to. I don't acknowledge their call. I don't acknowledge what's being said.
That's fair, but you're not talking about a situation that is far removed from a dynamic, and it's like I don't even want to take time and go into that.
Yeah.
Because you're going to your non-negotiables are your non-negotiables, and I feel how I feel about you not being able to change your non-negotiable for me in a moment that I needed it. That's just what it is. You can't, like, that is literally us accepting the situation for the two different perspectives that it is.
Yeah.
And we can, if parenting and childhood both had a manual, what's one thing you would rewrite?
I would definitely rewrite the old school rule that I grew up on, that children must be seen and not heard. That's a terrible ruling. Children must be seen and not heard. We were raised with that. Not so much my mum, definitely my nanny, and also the aunties and uncles, that were around. And I say that to say this: we couldn't really say how we felt. So there were things going on in our lives. There was trauma. There was things going on in school. There were things going on with friendships. There were things even going on with family that was not appropriate, wasn't right. And then there were things that we observed. So for children to be seen and not heard, we weren't heard. And that probably led to some of us seeking validation and acceptance and wanting to be heard by anybody else because we weren't heard in the house. That's definitely a rule I would get rid of because children are seen and they need to be heard. A, they can teach us something, and B, we can protect them if we know. We can't help what we don't know. So, what about for you? If parenting and childhood both had a manual, what's one thing that you would rewrite?
I'm not sure if it's a rewrite, but I would make it mandatory for all parents and their children to seek mediation and therapy, even if they think that they have a great relationship as is. I think mediation allows both parties to really express themselves in a way that can be translated and understood. I think language is very important, and I don't think that the older generations had a lot of language to use and articulate themselves. So they kind of just went a bit avoidant on children. And so children in turn create these bad habits where they grow up to be avoidant as well. And I think that can all be, avoided if we don't just assume that we know how parent child communication styles are. Instead, we learn because, children are an individual on their own as well as adults with their own individual experience. And I think being able to be heard, like kind of like what you were saying, and also to express yourself is really important. Yeah, I think that's one rule that I would. Right. Parenting isn't easy no matter the era. On the next episode, we're going to be diving into technology and how it has impacted and changed communication.